Any other discussion around the motion? All right, let's go to a vote. We'll call the votes. We have two commissioners on the phone. Down here, Commissioner Montano,
Aye.
Commissioner Overby,
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Neill Vivanco,
Aye.
Commissioner Barr,
Aye.
Commissioner Fox.
Couldn't hear you.
You're
Can't
muted if
hear
you're
you,
there,
Lee.
Commissioner Fox.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's good.
Got it. Thank you. Commissioner Damiani.
Aye.
All right, and I for myself. This agenda is passed unanimously with the note that we have pulled South Champlain Street item to be new 4.1. All right, thank you. Moving forward to public forums, we would certainly welcome any comments at this time. We would also invite, if there's comments specific to a later agenda item, you can speak at that time. We just ask that if you are interested in speaking, please come and sit at the microphone and make sure we've got your name for our records.
So if you're in the room, please sign up for public forum. If you're online, you can raise your hand or hit *9.
No takers?
I mean, did you want to speak, sir?
No, I mean, you have my
Okay.
stuff that I sent you, so
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Seeing none, we will close public forum and go forward to our consent agenda now with two items. Draft minutes from August and accessible parking and 412 North Street.
Motion to adjourn the amended consent agenda? Approve. Sorry.
We have a motion to approve the
I'm still
consent
thinking adjourn,
agenda.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion to approve the consent
We
agenda.
have a motion that's been seconded. Thank you. Is there any discussion around that motion? All right, so we'll go to a vote then. Again, to my left, Commissioner Montano.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Overby.
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Neill Vivanco.
Aye.
Commissioner Barr.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Fox.
Aye.
Commissioner Damiani.
Aye.
Aye for myself. The motion is passed unanimously. Thank you. Moving forward, new item 4.1 here regarding 30-minute parking on South Champlain Street.
Hi.
Welcome, brief introduction from staff.
Sure, Philip Peterson, Public Works Engineer. So we received a request from local residents. They were hoping to increase parking along this section of South Champlain Street. Initially, they were requesting resident parking. After a discussion with myself, met with folks and kind of explained that resident parking might not be the direction that you want to go. What we developed was a bit of a compromise. In reading the memo, we worked with local businesses. Earl's here with Andy's Diner. And what we've come up with for a compromise is the reallocation of one 30-minute parking space to general public use. That's it.
All right, thank you. Check with commissioners here for any discussion or questions around that. Commissioner Overby?
The only reason I pulled the thing is that I know there has been some sort of agreement that you've worked out. However, I just wanted to acknowledge that the Public Works Commission, we've set up these kind of arrangements where the businesses have between 8 and 4 a restricted 30-minute parking.
Mhm.
So that particular those spots that we're going to the one that's going to change, it is only operable Monday through Friday from 8 to 4. So the residents are able to park there overnight when they come home from work. And we've done that compromise in quite a few other places
Yep.
in the city. So I'm just wondering why this one would have been treated differently. And I'm really sensitive to the fact that of supporting neighborhood businesses that just probably right now can't be supported by just walk-in people. But
Right. So
why is it that, it's
so in
only 8
terms-
to 4?
So in
Monday
terms
through
of
Friday.
sheer volume, so this particular area in a 1-block radius, we have 14 30-minute parking spaces. And we have another 3 2-hour parking spaces. So I'm pretty sure that the local businesses have, their needs are being met. That's just kind of observation, experience, and just the volume of vehicles. We don't have specific data to support that. That's something that if you wanted us to, we could go into depth. We could do, parking volume contents, to do the whole analysis. But we felt like this is a good compromise.
Yeah, I was just wondering why in other circumstances, we thought that was a good compromise to make it so that the residents could park there overnight and the businesses could use it. So this is just, you think there's just too much parking in the area is that what the idea is?
Yes, the spaces currently the time-limited spaces are limited to daytime hours. Is that correct, Engineer Pearson?
Yeah.
So that compromise has already been employed. What we're seeing here is a level of residential use where the demand is so significant and not everybody has traditional work hours, that the neighbors were seeking to have spaces available during daytime hours as well. And that's why we agreed with one additional space, but in hearing from the business and the customers, that we didn't want to approve or recommend approval for the full resident request of both spaces.
Yeah, okay. And I know one of the things that I think that partly the reason that I'm sensitive to this is that we're sort of transitioning to the walkable, bikeable Burlington. And what that's going to cause is the need for storage parking on the street, which is for people that actually can walk and bike to work. And so we really need to step back, and I think, and part of the reason I'm bringing this up is that there may be, the parking during the day may be non-traditional work hours, but it also could be the fact that there's this pressure to be leaving the vehicle there so that it's available on the weekend to go hiking or skiing. So I just want us to think about that. And so in the context of this is sort of related to the businesses having the opportunity to have people drop in and get business. But the fact of this potentially future creeping of, well, we need to get more resident parking because people need to park there during business hours, 24/7 for days. I just want us to be aware of it and think about it. So that's part of the reason that I wanted to have this discussion, because it wasn't really addressed that maybe there's a reason why people leave their car on South Champlain, the people that wanted resident-only parking, because they do need to have it, not because they are going to work during the day and then coming home at night, but because they need to leave the car there 24/7 for days on end. Despite the fact that we have a 3-day limit supposedly, which is probably not enforceable based on some other information that I recently learned about how we do that. So thank you for the clarification on that.
All right, thank you. Any other comments from commissioners in the room? Yes.
Yeah, just
Sano.
thank you. Just a quick clarifying question. The attachment in the packet mentions that there was a petition circulated among the local residents.
So there wasn't a petition circulated. What was presented to us, and the residents were very clear after we had a conversation, it was a resident parking petition. They wanted resident parking on their street. After a conversation with us, they said, actually, forget about it. We do not want to submit this. We don't want this to be part of public record. So I tried to sensitively put in the memo that there was a petition. We were petitioned for extra parking resources. They are sensitive to avoiding resident parking being involved in the conversation.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
Other commissioners in the room first, and we'll go to the phone.
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Damiani,
I don't have any questions. I just echo the same concerns that Commissioner Overby mentioned earlier.
thanks. Commissioner Fox?
None from me.
All right. So while we're on it, we've covered the commission. Check and see if anyone's interested in speaking and public comment on this item. For any virtual hands raised? All right. With that, I would welcome a motion on this item.
I'd like to make a motion to accept staff's language to reallocate one 30-minute parking space on South Champlain Street.
Second.
Thank you for that motion from Vice Chair O'Neill-Vamaco and a second from Commissioner Barr. Is there any discussion around that motion?
Can I just ask one question? I think one of the comments in the packet was that that it would be striped, so that the actual spot that is available for the 30-minute parking is marked. Is that going to happen?
I'm not sure. I'd have
Okay.
to talk to parking
Okay.
traffic about.
I know
that.
that was, I think, it was a request that was made
I know it's a request, but that's,
just to, yeah, so that we know that that one's marked and the other one that's not 30-minute. So we don't know if that's going to,
We know it'll be clearly designated whether by a sign or by paint, most likely by a sign. But if there are problems with confusion with the
Driveway
public, then we
encroachments.
can enhance the
Right.
clarification.
that's something we'll work on.
all right, thank you.
Any other discussion around the motion? All clear, let's go to a vote then. Commissioner Montano,
Aye.
Commissioner Overby,
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Neill Vivanco,
Aye.
Commissioner Barr,
Aye.
Commissioner Fox,
Aye.
thank you, Commissioner Damiani.
Aye.
Aye for myself. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving forward, item 5 regarding a VHS
Zero.
garage. Thank you, Jim. Good evening. Welcome.
Jeff Padgett, I'm the Division Director for Parking and Traffic, and here with a cadre of folks from the Burlington High School. We've got Ryan Ness, Melanie Alexander, Joe Fatek, and Victor Prusik. And short story is, we're working on putting an outdoor learning space and rooftop garden on top of the downtown garage north, the former Lakeview garage. Long story is, I have to explain how we have to do it. So we're in a similar situation that we were in with Elmwood, where we need to actually decommission parking spaces so that we can legally use them for another purpose. So we went to council on Monday night to notify them that I was coming to you tonight, because if you approve this motion, those spaces now become under the jurisdiction of city council. So I had to go to them first to warn them that you guys might approve this, and then they will be in charge of it. And then I also asked them for authority to enter into a lease agreement with the school to manage the space. And the mayor actually has that authority. So although you're the first domino to fall, you're the second step in the process. So anyway, so that's what we're here for tonight, is to decommission 11 spaces on the rooftop. And that's really for 3 years, for 3 school years. So this school year, next school year, and the following school year. And then we'll reassess and still do the rooftop garden. We'll come back and we'll extend it, or we'll deal with that at that time. But we wanted to have a finite amount of time for this. So that's what we're officially here to request in the motion, is the decommissioning of 11 spaces for 3 years. We included a sketch the schools put together about the use of the space, so that's why they all came, so we talk to the use of the space if you're interested in that. But I wanted to make sure that we understood that the use will actually be under the jurisdiction of the mayor, and the decommissioning is within your jurisdiction, but I understand you want to know what you're decommissioning for. So it's a little bit funny. So anyway, I'll stop talking. Joe can speak to your questions about the use or answer whatever questions.
Great, thank you for that. Start down here with Commissioner Barr.
I think I read, so I'll just ask for confirmation that, at such time that they're done using them for this outdoor space and PHS moves somewhere else, if that's the case, then they'll be returned to parking spaces if we want.
Yeah, there's 2 triggers. One is if we need it,
Mhm.
we will work with them to evict them.
Yeah.
And after 3 years, it will end, or we'll be back here to ask for an extension.
Okay. That was really the only question that I had for it, so.
Vice Chair O'Neill Vivanco.
Right. I think this is a great idea. So when you mentioned if we need it, we know right now that garage is underutilized, so, and certainly the rooftop generally is as well. What is the trigger? I don't know if I saw any metrics on identifying what the trigger would be, as far as kind of a capacity that then says, okay, BHS, we need this space, and then what's the time frame then just for BHS to kind of pull the stakes?
Right, and that's that time frame and the trigger we're gonna have to work out in the lease agreement. Frankly, the top deck right now is mostly empty. There's maybe 1 or 2 cars parked up there at any given time. So I kind of don't honestly know what that trigger is exactly going to look like. How, we need the top deck to be half full or 3/4 full before we start getting scared.
Okay,
And over how long of a time are we
Right.
watching that happen, right? If it's just one weekend, well, that's not enough.
is it just holiday shopping or is it, okay,
Right, so we and this, I've had this discussion just this week with Leonard Ducharme, who manages the money in the garage, and we're already starting to talk about my presentation to you guys in, I think it's February. I'm supposed to give a occupancy and, just activity report about what's going on in the garages. And, it's still volatile. We're still running 60-70%. So I just am completely transparent and honest. I don't know what that trigger is going to look like just yet. If the economy comes roaring back and the garage fills up, then it's going to inform our trigger. And then we're going to have to work together to figure out. And the timeline of eviction, something reasonable, 2 months, a month, 6 weeks, something like
okay. That word eviction just.
that.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Relocation.
Termination of the agreement. Unhoming.
I think maybe we can, be clear. The Department of Public Works supports this request, and we are going to err on the side of finding solutions and not be seeking to end this prematurely, unless there's a really significant constraint, and then we would work in good faith with our partner.
We really value having the school there. The energy that is brought by the increased activity in the garage has really helped curb things like graffiti. The graffiti activity has gone down dramatically. So we're really happy to see the garage full. I think it's good for the community to see the garage full. So we're definitely supportive, speaking
Okay.
loosely.
And then another question about this, so then these spaces are no longer under our purview. However, that sort of like that bleeding edge then of this infrastructure that is now under the purview of the mayor and city council with that agreement, what do you anticipate some of the kind of interactions between, I'm a parent for those of you who don't, I mean, I know Hector knows. And what, how do we keep our kids safe, and how do we avoid conflict between vehicles and students? I mean, from this, you're close to the stairwell. Sorry. I know. So it looks like there won't be interaction, but I'm just wondering if you can address that. Is that-
Just a preface, we've worked really closely over the past couple of months building out an operations plan, behavior expectations, and understanding and documentation of disciplinary process for behavior. So, but that's all in their court, and we'll act as landlords.
Okay.
So like any sort of landlord agreement, if there's activity happening in the space that you're leasing, you have, we can move in and we can assert ourselves. But it's clear that we're trying to, this is their space to do their fun stuff with, right? So, but anyway, I'll let you speak to it.
Sure. So thank you for the question. A lot like any other space that we would have in the school, it would only be authorized for use under supervision. So if we were to have classes going up there, we would have a sign in, sign out kind of reservation system. They would be going with a teacher, just like you would have as many teachers if there's a special educator, paraeducator, whatever. Be the same ratio as you would have in a classroom. And then other times, if we were to use it, let's say it's a nice day and we wanted to allow some students to go up for lunch, it wouldn't just be, a free-for-all, everyone go up there. We would have to regulate that with supervision. There are also plans to have cameras placed up there as well. So at times when there isn't supervision, just like, there are corners of the school that people can't see, we have people who are watching those cameras to make sure that there isn't much loitering happening there. So we would treat it as a space that we have in the school. As a matter of fact, it would probably be under more supervision than at the other building where you just had, I think there were like over 70 doors in the old building where people could exit.
Oh,
And
I
then
know.
all of those,
I know.
all those grounds. Here we don't have as many doors, and they would probably be under a lot closer supervision as well. They're
And there are no windows. This is why this is, I think, a really fantastic opportunity.
oh yeah, vitamin D is important.
It is.
So
Right, and I didn't want to imply that I think that the students, as a parent of teenagers, that they would get into trouble necessarily, but there's an open space and there's a lot going on in downtown. So
oh yeah, of course.
just like opportunities, eyes on this for all our students to feel safe in that space. But I'm glad that, I don't know, the video cameras might be a good opportunity to just kind of have a presence
oh yeah,
when
absolutely.
there isn't a presence there.
Joe, I don't know if you want to just talk about just the whole concept of having a perimeter. I mean, I know you saw the plans, but the perimeter space and what's going to mean. Also protecting kids from vehicles potentially.
Right,
as well.
okay.
Yeah, so I did some research on non-mounted barriers and the dimensions and weights of those barriers and the spacing. So our plan is to have, they're actually lower plant beds that are built out of what used to be wooden guardrails in Vermont. We have someone who's working with us donating those old guardrails as they switch them to steel. We've made some lower plant beds out of those, and they match the specs of like concrete barriers that you would have that aren't mounted, spaced every 4 feet. Turns out we would need 16 of those. And
These
then
are the blue things on the blue barrier beds
Yep,
here.
the blue
Okay.
squares.
Mhm.
Yep, and then coming out of the stairway, going around, we would of course paint whatever kind of markings we would need to paint, stripes, I suppose, to show where the walkway is. And then under, of course, adult supervision, we would have some people kind of herding people into those. And then along the concrete wall is 4 feet high. And we have plans to put in an 8-foot fence that would go from the floor, so it would be 8 feet total,
That's a good idea.
and mounted to that 4-foot partial concrete wall. So, kind of keeping it feeling open, but still having necessary protections in there as much as we possibly can.
Great,
What-
no,
One step we didn't mention in here to get into these sort of details, these are sort of zoning-ish sort of details, right? So we actually have to get a conditional use permit for this use in this space. And because it's temporary, they're allowed. There's exceptions in the zoning code that allow it. So Joe's working through the zoning process, and that's why we have a lot of this detail, because it's needed to support the zoning permit.
okay.
I'm learning a lot I never actually wanted to learn.
Oh, we love details here. No, that's all for me. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
answering those questions.
Thank you. Let's switch it up and go to the phone here. Commissioner Damiani.
I think the only question I had, and this is probably in either the operations or maintenance agreement, but I'm assuming there's going to be tables and chairs in this sort of particular area. Is in either the operations or maintenance plan, does it address sort of having the tables and chairs sort of pulled away from the middle of the night, just so that the next morning DPW staff, if in the event that there's chairs or tables sort of scattered throughout the parking garage, don't have to address that?
Yes, we actually made a prototype of a table on casters that would fit under the raised beds. Those would be secured there. And then in the plans, there are also 2 sheds. So any chairs that we have would be folding chairs that would be expected, like whoever's using the space would unlock the shed, take those chairs out, and then put them away. So there wouldn't be any tables or chairs that are out and accessible when the area is not in use.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Fox.
I wholeheartedly support the reallocation of these parking spaces for high school students to use for the gardens. I love it. And that's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Overby.
I have a couple quick questions. I think the seating and the tables you've sort of addressed, but would there be a tent or awnings or anything like that that would be used during rain, weather kind of things that you anticipate?
We haven't planned for that, so the use would be weather permitting.
Okay. And also lighting and like power. Is there electrical outlets there for, audiovisual kind of things and whatever? Has that been worked out?
We haven't actually discussed that. I know that in looking at the space, there is an outlet, but I don't anticipate that if we are using it for any kind of classroom use, if you were trying to project anything in those conditions, you may as well not, because you wouldn't be able to see anything. So given the amount of screen time and electronics that are being used, I kind of like the idea of this being an analog space. So, keeping it as kind of almost like a refuge from what we're normally doing would actually be, I don't know if we'd be explicit about that, but it would definitely be encouraged implicitly.
So you don't think you're going to need any kind of power outlets there or lighting of some sort?
No, because
Okay.
if we're working in, good weather conditions during school day hours, you'd have plenty of natural light.
Yep. And that would lead to one of my questions about the types of classes that you would have up there. Or do you have a thought about that? The kinds of classes? Any teacher decides they want to do it, they can put their name on the list to use the space?
Oh yeah, I've already spoken to about the idea to a few teachers in our science department, because of course we have a gentleman who teaches environmental science, so this would be of interest to him, especially because the old building he had a part of his classroom was a greenhouse, so this would allow him to do those kinds of things again. But I would hope that anyone who would want to just have a change of scenery and take their students outside and read poetry or whatever. When I was in college, I had a professor who was barefoot most of the time and taught Shakespeare and would take us out to the amphitheater. It was one of my favorite classes.
Yeah, you just have a box at the gate there that you put everyone puts their cell phones in, and then you don't need any of that electronics. Is there a student committee at all that's working with you on the planning for this? Or is it just student teachers and administration right now?
Well, Ryan and I this summer, we ran a 3-week program where we actually had students who were helping us build in anticipation of this, building some of the raised beds. And so planning and ideas were underway. We didn't want to start getting into a lot of planning, not knowing for sure we would be able to do this. But we do have a student government with a student planning committee in there too. And we would love to get them involved. Just don't want to seem like we're promising something before we know for sure that we would be able to have this materialize.
Right. Well, the reason I asked the question is that, getting those students enthusiastic and involved might be helping your cause, because they would be so enthusiastic about it and they would have some ideas that it might not have occurred to the administrator. I always am sensitive to when adults plan things for young people and the young people are late to the game as far as being able to provide input that would have been really valuable early on. So I would love to see students more involved. Obviously, I hope I support this project, but I hope that the students get a chance to really weigh in on it and as much as possible.
Oh yeah. Well, the structures that we built over the summer were all almost entirely student built. And there's already a sense of pride in those, because some of them will ask us, like, when are we going to get that there? And we're working on it. So
they know that's what you're working on.
yeah, they have ownership
Yep.
of it already.
Two questions that are sort of related to the security issues about the walkway that goes between Cherry Street and Bank Street is on that below the east side of this rooftop, right?
Right.
So my thought would be wondering about having to deal with the option of the problem of projectiles coming over the wall, and if there's a way to be putting like some sort of net or something, so that if that does happen, it's not going to come down on people that are walking through that walkway, which already has its own challenges. Just a suggestion. And the other thing about, you had suggested there's going to be cameras, but are there going to be monitoring of that at off hours when the school is not in session using it during the day, like in the evening, because it might turn into a very nice nesting spot for other people.
We've talked about that extensively. We have our own cameras, and the cameras that they're speaking of would be
Monitored.
high school cameras.
Mhm.
They have all the rights to monitor. Our cameras are a little more complicated because we can monitor. We just got monitors now. We can actually see what's happening on the cameras, but we don't record. So we're in a position of sort of after the fact. So if we see signs of someone, group, there's a party on the deck, right? We wouldn't be in the position of calling the police and asking them to run back the video from the night before or access their camera.
Yeah, and I'm not going to predict that that's going to be a problem. I'm just anticipating that things like that do happen, and
No, we're going in eyes wide open on that issue.
I think it's just once it's in operation, you'll find out who all discovers it and thinks it's a great place to go hang out and party at 2:00 in the morning.
That,
Tell them if they do, just pick some weeds and bring a rake.
Say that again. Fix
I
it.
said if they do choose to do that, we'll just ask them to make sure they pick
Right.
some
Oh.
weeds and bring a rake.
Right. Gotcha. All right. Well, I think that's addressed. I think it's a great idea. It's a creative idea. I think it would be useful, not just, good weather. I think it would be handy if it was available other than just good days. I think the rain, snow, whatever, we've all learned during the pandemic that the young people are fine going out, dressed up properly. So I would say find a way to, make it so that it's for season. If we're going to do it for 3 years, I would suggest that some way it could be done so there's some other option for covering when necessary. So
part of the reason we structured it as a lease is that it's 24/7, 365. So they can use it over Christmas break, they can use it over spring break, they can use it at any time of day.
I think until you get the young people using it and teachers that are enthusiastic, you won't really even have any idea how amazing things will happen there. And that's no way we can predict. What's here looks very, very plain and boring, planters and, little raised bed boxes and sheds, but it's going to turn into something else if there's young people using it. And I think that's the best thing to see happen. So what they have for an options would be great. So I'm enthusiastic about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Montano.
Yeah. I think I also think this is an amazing project. And honestly, I think we should have this on the roof of all of the city parking garages. And I'd like to really echo what Solveig said about having students really take ownership. Like they are the main beneficiaries of the public education here in Burlington. And this is kind of a unique opportunity where they have not just the opportunity to do the things, right? Build the beds, do the gardening, but actually make decisions about how it's done, like what they grow, where the food goes. And I just like to, we, I guess as the adults now, right, are making these decisions from the top down, but really using this, within the school to help students make their own decisions and kind of learn about, well, what is the city that we live in? Why is there so little green space around? And I think the framework that the school district and DPW and all of these city departments have laid out has done an amazing job of that. So I'll certainly be supporting this.
Thank you.
Yeah, on my end, I'm glad to support it. I thank you all for your efforts here. Let's just check it and see if anyone is interested in speaking at public comment on this item. All right, I will bring it back to the commission and welcome a motion.
Chair Hogan, I just have a couple of things I just thought should get said out loud.
Sure,
that weren't
please.
asked. One is I just wanted to reiterate the relationship that we have with the school and my crew. We email dozens of times a week. We have a very open text. We call the phone. So we have a very open and transparent relationship. Usually, actually always focused on the safety of the kids. That's the first thing that comes into all this. So anyway, I just wanted to reiterate, I know there's some safety concerns and that is our number one concern. Second, we're gonna have a garden. Nobody asked about water. Just want to make sure everybody knows there is water up there. We control the water. It's actually off, so when they need water, they're gonna have to coordinate with my crew and get the water on, coordinate with the crew to turn it off. So we'll have more relationship there. So we'll be working together, even though they're a tenant, we'll actively work with them. And then there's no cost to this to the city. This is grant funded through the high school. So just want to make sure that that funding part was understood. Anyway, thank you.
Great, thank you. I see the numbers here. It's small evidence of this relationship. Thank you all for coming and participating in it. At this point, I would welcome a motion if anyone's so inclined.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the decommissioning of 11 parking spaces on the top deck of the downtown garage north.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion from Vice Chair O'Neill-Babanco, second from Commissioner Montano. Thank you. Is there any discussion around that motion? All right, go to a vote then, please. Commissioner Montano,
Aye.
you, Commissioner Overby,
Aye.
Vice Chair O'Neill-Babanco,
Aye.
Commissioner Barr,
Aye.
Commissioner Fox,
Aye.
you, Commissioner Damiani.
Aye.
Aye for myself. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, moving forward to director's reports.
All right. Well,
Yeah, thanks.
thanks all. We, in my director's report, talked a little about the construction season. Construction season has generally gone well. We have hit a number of issues that are requiring our creativity to finish off this season in strong form. There was a section of relined water main up on North Prospect Street that did not hold, that didn't pass the pressure test. So we're working with the contractor on a very likely an open dig replacement of that one block section of water main, which will slow our production this year. So some of our relining scheduled for this year will move to the following season. Similarly, on the paving front, we are working diligently. We just went to council to get approval to do additional stormwater work on North Avenue. The section we're repaving is from Ethan Allen Parkway to Shore Road. It's a very flat section by the shopping center, and so drainage is a concern there, especially with the bike lanes and wanting them to drain well. So we have executed a change order to add additional drainage structures along that corridor, which is making that project take longer than we'd like. We're still planning to repave North Avenue this year, but some of the other streets, such as Flynn Avenue, will likely be pushed until next spring. That said, we had a really good public meeting for the Rail Yard Enterprise Project. Olivia was part of that team on the 7th of this month, and we went to council and gave a presentation 2 nights ago about where we are in the staff recommendation and your recommendation for alternative 1B that you all discussed last month. The council asked some good questions. I think they're poised to approve that recommended alternative at their October 17th meeting. If the commission wants to get engaged in that conversation, there'll be that opportunity at that council meeting to do so. And I think that's it. Anything else, Olivia, I should be hitting?
The roundabout is expected to open up as a functioning roundabout, in a few weeks. So that's exciting. We have that to look forward to. That's it.
And then maybe lastly, excuse me, we're still seeking to hire a number of open positions. I may sound like a broken record, but crossing guards, we still need to fill those positions. Please pass along the word to your friends and colleagues. And we also have a number of technical positions, planner positions, one associate engineer position. So check out our website for great job opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so bring it back to Commissioner Communications then. Start with Commissioner Damiani.
The only item I had, I think I think maybe looking forward, it'd be helpful to have an agenda item in the future, sort of discussing ways that the department can address bike safety in terms of bike storage, and both outreach as well as sort of physical infrastructure throughout the city.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Fox.
Yeah, I do have one thing, and perhaps it has been addressed before I was a commissioner, but it's related to Ordinance 20-126 that allows bicycle use of pedestrian control signals as long as they come to a full stop. I am a cyclist who follows the rules of the road. I signal, I stop, I do all that jazz, but I have been yelled at by drivers so many times in the past few weeks for using or for going on a pedestrian signal when a light is red. For example, at the intersection of Pearl Street and Winooski. And I just think that with the understanding that I am always for infrastructure over education. Education, I think, is kind of a band-aid. However, I think that the public could really benefit from some education around this. Perhaps just like little signage like they have for like at the intersection of North Street and North Avenue that shows where bicyclists go for the signal to change. Just something around this so that there's not this kind of hostility between drivers and bicyclists. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. Other than that, excited to hear about the work that's happening on North Ave. I think that's super important. That section needs work, so that's good to hear. Yeah, that's it from me.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Montano.
Yeah, thanks as always to the whole DPW staff, and I've seen all of the construction going on in this, window of good climate, and I'm happy that progress was made in spite of all the snags. Yeah, I'm a UVM graduate student, and I've been on campus this whole summer, and I'm happy to see the University Place project is moving along at a good clip. But also, it's that area is heavily used by pedestrians, and there's been a lot of disruptions in actually crossing the University Place corridor and moving across onto the Waterman Green. And I noticed, and a lot of my colleagues have noticed, that that is a pretty big detour if you are walking across there. And I feel like the city and the university and students and everyone that uses the space could benefit from a little more communication, especially like going into the summer season when all of this work is going on and there's projects that are being done in collaboration between the university and the city. So I'm thinking that's just one thing to keep in mind for future construction if it's going on in that area, and really anywhere where pedestrians could be, much more affected than drivers. Like, it's not, a 2 or 3 minute detour having to maneuver around a couple of blocks. It could be like a 10 or more minute detour when the entire bed is, there one day and, closed and being ripped up the next. So apart from that, I'm, just, yeah, happy to, be back here, and definitely want to echo what Commissioner Fox and Commissioner Damiani said, both about having a more open conversation about bicycle safety and infrastructure, and I guess the implementation of Plan BTV walk bike, as well as maybe specifically addressing some of the specific intersections like the Winooski and Pearl one. Like Commissioner Fox mentioned, I would say especially that South Winooski corridor in between there and Main Street is a place where obviously like funding is certainly an issue, but apart from just education, doing more kind of like quick sort of changes that could make it safer, but also make cyclists feel more comfortable when they're traveling on these busy corridors, because I feel like that is certainly, if I were to pinpoint an area that's keeping cyclists away from using that mode to get around. I would say kind of that downtown east sort of core is certainly a spot where we could kind of discuss and work on solutions all together as a commission and with the department and everything. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Commissioner Overby.
I wanted to just follow up on the timeline, a question on the timeline of finishing the water line on North Prospect. I know you mentioned that there's the issue of it failed the pressure test. Do you have any kind of sense of the timeline on that? Because I know that's been dug up for quite a while. I mean, you might not be able to have your crystal ball and actually say that, but I would love to know for the benefit of those people what
Yes.
they're looking at.
We have sent out a Vermont alert and a front porch forum to those neighbors about the timeline, and my best recollection is that the full replacement, the open dig replacement, will take approximately 1 month. So the goal is to complete the project this year. The final, it will be patched this year. The final paving on top of the street, once all the utility work is done, may not occur until spring of 2023.
I know really when we talked about that, the other thing about the traffic getting diverted from from Prospect there up over to Mansfield Avenue. Were there ever any counters about how much traffic is routing that way? It may
I
have
don't
been.
know. I could check.
It was just, it's one of those issues of now that there's the issue is going to come up again about the stop sign at the top of, I think it's North or Loomis, I'm not sure which one, the one that, the proposal is to remove a stop sign and make Mansfield pretty much just a straightaway. I think it's going to be relevant with, this would have been helpful information of how many cars are now routing that way and how many, because obviously they can't go through going south on Prospect. It's just information to be useful information ultimately. And the other thing I was going to ask about, and it came up at the picnic, the appreciation picnic, was the new programmable signalization that you are testing out on Riverside. And I know I had mentioned in the past that I'm a complete fan of the roundabout because you don't have to deal with the signalization issues of the cost and the repairing it and all that. But the fact that you're getting you're now going to be testing out, I guess, ultimately four signals that actually can communicate with each other. And my concern is with signals is that they regular drivers going through a route that have a sense that their traffic light is going to take too long, they're inclined to step on the gas when it turns yellow. And so what I'm trying to figure out is one of the things that I would like to have, maybe you put it, one of the items on our agenda is to explain how those new signals might work. Because what I think what could happen is if those were programmed well to communicate with each other, there can be a better sense so that drivers that are regular people going through those will, when they see a yellow light, will not be as inclined to step on the gas because they know that the light is very fair and very quick and a turnaround and they can get going.
Right.
So when dealing with signals, I just feel like that's a real huge safety feature. And it would be great if more information could be provided to the other commissioners that I got a little bit of at the picnic of those fancy signals that people.
Controllers, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it would be handy for all of us to know more about those and what benefit they're going to have for safety of pedestrians and people that don't want to get T-boned when somebody steps on it when they see yellow. Great, thanks.
Great.
Thank you. Commissioner Barr?
So I'm sorry I missed the staff appreciation. I was on vacation. I like to go to those things. I'm glad it went well. Just kudos again to the road work that's being done. I've noticed that a lot of projects are finishing up. So I'm appreciative of that, trying to squeeze them in before the construction season ends. Other than that, I don't really have. My experience is that people will always step on the gas when it's a yellow light. Though I have to say that I wait my turn to cross because people will always try and make that light, especially during the rush hours. But other than that, I have nothing. Thanks.
All right. Vice Chair O'Neill Vivanco.
Yeah, so I just want to echo Commissioner Damiani's comment about, bike security and infrastructure. I mean, just even out here tonight, Commissioner Barr and I were, chaining our bikes and hoping that they'll be secure enough right outside our, DPW office. We'll see who did a better job.
Mine's gone. Still there.
And then also, I'm just stealing everyone's thunder here. Commissioner Fox's comments on, I didn't know the ordinance, Commissioner Fox, but thank you. She's geeking out on us here already. But this idea of, how do we do a better job at educating drivers really, I know this is a DMV and this is a state issue, but mobility education about what really the rules of the road are, how to move around our city, because it is really threatening, especially as like a female cyclist, to be yelled at by anyone in a vehicle. So kind of thinking about what are those ways to keep us all safe. And then Commissioner Mutano, his comment on University Place. So I've been kind of sandwiched between the construction at the Rotary and University Place. Every day riding my bike to work on campus, I'm like, can't go this way. And to kind of compare the two different kinds of communications. And I've said this before, the communications about the Rotary have been like just fantastic. I get updates regularly. And even though I don't always know what's going on, I know that there's something in the email that, I just needed to read. A little bit more information, especially as the students started to come back to campus. I thought, this could be, just create some conflict. That said, the work that has been done there was amazing. And what I tell folks also about the Rotary is that your staff and contractors, they're basically doing neurosurgery. It's not just a paving project. It is taking utilities. And I mean, I think I saw Laura Wheelock up on campus once, and I was like, wow, like standing over a ditch. This sense of it isn't just a paving project. It is really like, it is water and utilities. That messaging out to the public, I think, is really, really important. Why is it taking so long? And we just navigated, Commissioner Barr and I just navigated on our bikes the Rotary tonight. So it's looking good.
Went
So-
smoothly.
Yeah, it went smoothly.
Didn't get
We'll
hit.
see how it goes on the way home. But anyway, great work. Just, I think, more work on communication, what we all need. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, thank you all. I generally sense the minutes. We're all always thankful and grateful for your work and nudging for more. I guess one question on the North Prospect redo there, and I'm thinking about it in light of this is probably not your guys' business, but the Callahan Park Playground also had a redo, some plumbing issues and so forth. I'm sort of curious about the nature of the contracts in that respect. Like, is that more bill for the city when stuff like that goes wrong and needs more work than planned?
Right. The city does have a good city attorney department that really helps us with contracting and make sure that we have a good template that protects our interests. The North Prospect Street issue is still playing out, but it is my full expectation that unless there is a reason that the city is at fault for any of the situation that is up there, that it is ultimately on the contractor who is a professional at this relining technology to cure any failure. And to date, all the relinings have gone fairly smoothly. This is an anomaly. This is not a common occurrence. But I certainly can keep the commission updated as this unfolds.
Great, thank you. You got better attorneys than me, because when I've had contractors make mistakes before, paid their hourly rate for them to be fixing their mistakes. glad to hear we may be in better shape as a city. Pleased to report that for the first time, see this for the first time in a few months now, we are at 7 commissioners at our monthly meeting. Thank you, thank you,
Yay.
thank you, thank you. Good, glad to see. One other news item, I guess it was came to city council a while back. There was a youth on boards initiative, and I'm not sure what other commissions have done with that. We've been thinking about it a bit of how to approach that here, knowing that evening meetings can be a challenge for youth to participate and can sort of unfortunately limit which youth could participate and so forth. And one update on that is that we are planning to link up with the Burlington City and Lake semester next month. Thanks to the efforts of Vice Chair O'Neill Vivanco and others at the City and Lake semester and Public Works for being willing to coordinate that and set that up. I just wanted to sort of give that update here publicly. It's not going to be a public meeting. There will be less than 4 commissioners there, but it is an opportunity to I think meet students where they are during the school day and have some focused attention on their part on a city project, and I'm sure get some feedback and perspectives that we don't typically get at our typical evening meeting, and the demographics that tend to show and give us an earful. Really looking forward to that conversation next month. That said, I think we have room for maybe one other commissioner seat at that meeting. So if somebody's interested, let's chat offline and try to get you plugged in there. It is a weekday, middle of the day, which is going to be challenging for us us as well. But we're glad to make it happen. Nothing else on my end. So with that, I'll close Commissioner Communications and move forward
Chair Hogan,
Yeah,
I forgot
item.
one item.
Please.
If I will be quick about it, but we had a short agenda tonight. I had hoped that we could do the wastewater treatment plant tour that we've been discussing over the last couple of months. Staff is still very interested in doing this. Our wastewater plant facility manager couldn't do tonight, so we will look to do next month at the plant if that works for the commission. There is a double bill. Not only could there be a tour of the wastewater plant, but we are also in the midst of piloting 3 different types of tertiary treatment at the plant. This is the 3rd level of treatment that will further reduce phosphorus, take phosphorus out of the effluent before it's discharged into the lake as part of our increased commitment to protecting the lake. So next month would be the very end of that pilot, and you would have the opportunity to see the different technologies that we're testing out before we select, hopefully, the preferred technology and start moving towards implementing as part of our wastewater plant upgrades. So just wanted to put that out there, if that's friendly, that we might be a little challenged to do a hybrid meeting. Options are we do a hybrid meeting here and then we travel to the plant, or if the agenda's light and we don't think that there's a lot of need for the hybrid meeting, we could just have a in-person meeting.
Do we have thank you for that update. Do we have a phone there at least?
We do have phone technology, but not the hybrid meeting technology.
All right, yeah, we'll chat offline about that. Good reminder, I think I saw a notice that there's a public tour tomorrow evening.
That is
5
correct.
o'clock as well.
Thank you for reminding me of what I need
For
to talk
commissioners that
about.
can't wait a month, or the public, to our best audience watching at home tonight that is 3 to 5 o'clock tomorrow.
I'm telling you, Megan makes
Get
the
signed up.
wastewater
It's awesome.
world so excited.
It's interesting what she says.
Yeah.
Yeah. Encourage you all, if you're available, up on the tour tomorrow or one of this recurring series of opportunities to get a good look at what's happening behind the scenes there. Thank you for that. All right. Are we clear? Move to item 8, adjournment and next meeting date, October 19th.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion from Commissioner Barr,
Second.
second from Commissioner Montano. Is there any discussion around that motion? All right, to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Commissioner Damiani?
Round.
Aye.
Aye for myself. All right, so we are adjourned 7:43. Thank you all. Good evening.